Hello everyone and welcome back to their Teamfight Tactics Guide. Today we cover the 9.21 meta, everything that's changed, and everything that you need to know in order to keep winning before Rise of the Elements or Set 2 lands upon us. Set number 2 is currently on the PBE for public testing and includes a almost complete wipe of the units that are in the game right now, plus a lot of new items to learn. However, we're a couple weeks out from that landing, so in the meantime, let's learn together how to play 9.21 the best that we can. But before we jump into the best comps for 9.21,
I want to take a second to thank today's video sponsor, Manscaped. If you're a guy like me and you're actually a human bear in disguise, you have to manscape. And so I've been looking constantly for products that help me to keep myself trim everywhere on my body. So Manscaped actually has a pretty sweet deal. It's called the Perfect Package 2.0. And in this package, you get a lot of really great products that help keep your skin healthy and safe, but also comes with some great tools. The premier of these is actually the Lawnmower 2.0, and it's literally this big. It is USB rechargeable, TSA safe, which means you can travel with it, but only that, it is completely safe to the touch, doesn't cut and nick. So anywhere that you need to trim and shave, and of course in the nether region. So when you're down there, it's really important that you actually have something that is gonna be safe to not cut your skin. And I've used the Lawnmower 2.0 and I can tell you that it is absolutely one of the best products on the market, and it comes in a whole package with other items as well. The Crop Cleanser is a body wash, and if you're not using body wash every single day, you're putting people around you in danger of smelling your awful stank. The Crop Reviver is something you can leave in your gym bag, you can have it in your nightstand, so anytime you feel like your down below is a little bit stinky or needs some refreshing, anytime you need to freshen up, that's exactly what this one is for. The Crop Preserver, which is an anti-chafing ball deodorant. So you use this so it doesn't stink down there, and actually after using it right after the shower, throughout the day you'll notice that the swamp feeling you get goes away pretty quick. Something that doesn't get talked about enough is using proper cologne. So you'll actually get a dose of this refined Manscaped cologne. It smells great, and it's something you should be putting on every single day. On top of that, you'll get a sweet grooming package. I actually have one of these in every area in my car, in my home, and I think this is an actually great pickup here. The package isn't complete without an actual razor, something you can shave all the way down to the skin with, and that's where the Plow 2.0 comes in. It comes in this great little package that actually has a mirror in it, so you can actually check your face if you need to, and it's actually one of those old school barber razors. It will have a single razor blade on it. And once you get used to using a barber's razor, you will never want to go back. So stop waiting, pick up the Perfect Package 2.0. I highly recommend it. And because we're such great friends, I'm gonna be giving you a 20% off code for the Perfect Package 2.0. You'll find it down below in the pinned comment and in the description. If you use code DRY20, that's dry20 at checkout, you'll get 20% off your order, and trust me, once you get into the world of manscaping and men's grooming, you will notice how much it affects everything else in your life. Looking your best and feeling your best are something that are completely connected. So find a way to always look your best, and the Perfect Package 2.0 is a great way to get there.
but that's enough about your balls. Let's get back on the ball and talk about 9.21. In 9.21, it was a relatively small patch that saw some damage reduction to the late game player damage you receive and an increase to the player damage you receive at the beginning of the game. Guardian bonus went down slightly. Hextech item disable went down slightly. We saw a very small nerf to night damage, but really what you need to know is Brand got a lot more consistent. His bounce range went from 2 hexes to 3 hexes away, and the missile speed went from slower to faster, which makes him very scary. Elementalist you'll see pop up a lot now as a mid-game transition build, and some people are even running Elementalist at the very end of the game just because Brand is so reliable. We also saw a buff to Cho'Gath's spell damage, which means that Void builds got even better with that backbone AoE damage on top. And with Pantheon and Draven receiving small nerfs as well, we're starting to lean more into Void and the Imperial builds. Some of the builds stayed the same from last time, but there are some new builds that are starting to become more available in the spotlight. The first of these is going to be Void Brawlers. Now, this build should come as no surprise to you based on what I just mentioned. Cho'Gath getting more AoE damage on his spell hit means that Voids are even more viable. We also saw Kai'Sa get a little bit better over time and now becoming one of the best units in the game. The main reason for this is the fact that Giant Slayer is hands down one of the best items in the game, and most people are fighting over how many Giant Slayers and Guardian Angels they can collect before they win first place. They're that good. So with Void Brawlers, you're looking to get a good tanky frontline with 4 Brawlers, Blitzcrank, Rek'Sai, Cho'Gath, and Vi. This will give you a really great amount of damage absorption, but you'll also get the 4 Void bonus by adding in Kai'Sa and Kha'Zix. Early on in the game, you can sub in Kai'Sa for Kassadin, and you can even put the items that you intend to put on Kai'Sa onto Kassadin in the meantime, and then we just go ahead and put in an Akali for the extra damage that she provides. This build is essentially capitalizing on what is the best in the game in all categories. It gives you a good amount of tankiness, a crazy amount of damage between the AoE on Cho'Gath, Kai'Sa flying around the map killing everyone, Jinx murdering everyone in their sleep, and Akali erasing enemy players from the game entirely. Not only that, but with 4 Void, you're giving Cho'Gath's AoE true damage and Kai'Sa true damage on her attacks as well. If you're able to finish this build, it is one of the hardest builds to stop in the game because it just hits so dang hard. Going over items, you really want attack speed and Giant Slayer on the Kai'Sa, so Rage Blade and the Giant Slayer makes sense. Getting at least a Giant Slayer on Jinx will make her very effective, but you can put other items on her like Rage Blade, or I like RFC because it keeps her away from the enemy AoE. As always, as has been the same for a very long time, Cho'Gath works best with a Morellos because he'll apply the debuff to large numbers of enemies, and a Guardian Angel to make sure that if he dies, he'll come back and pop his again. On the Akali, you will want to get a Dragon's Tooth and a Seraph's Embrace to make sure that she uses her ultimate constantly and doesn't die to AoE damage. And what we're seeing a lot of right now is putting a jeweled gauntlet onto Blitzcrank, because in most cases, even if it doesn't crit every time, if that punch does crit, it will usually one-shot, if not 95% damage on the enemy it hits, which is an easy phantom buff with just the Blitzcrank. It's absolutely incredible. Getting a jeweled gauntlet on Blitzcrank is very valuable. Now, we did see a reduction in the frozen heart duration, but it is great on brawlers like Vi that stand by near the enemy, especially since she will use her ability, get to the backline, and then stand near one of the carries like Draven or Jinx or Lucian that will allow them to slow the attack speed before anyone can get to her. One word of caution here, as Kai'Sa is heavily sought after right now, that you want to try and plan around a build that will get you through mid-game before you get the Kai'Sa online, because she is a little bit harder to get. But again, once you get this build going, it is absolutely unstoppable. The number 2 build is Dragon Knights. This build has remained one of the best in the game for a lot of reasons. First off, you're going to get the Phantom bonus from Mordekaiser and Kindred. Phantom is one of the best buffs in the game right now because it only requires 2 units, one of those, Kindred, being very valuable for keeping your backline alive, but it also can sometimes just randomly kill off an Aurelion Soul or kill off an Akali, and then all of a sudden you win that round by default. You add to this Aurelion Soul, which will usually wipe the entire team by himself, and then of course he needs one more dragon to keep him alive. In this case, we're using Pantheon. To combine with Pantheon, we add in the Leona for the Guardian buff, and then from then we just need to finish off the Knights. Add in Sejuani, Poppy, and Kale to finish off with Mordekaiser and give you the 4 Knight bonus. Even though 4-Night bonus was nerfed in 9.21, it is still one of the best ways to keep your team alive and kicking. And you put all this together and you have one of the most stable, well-rounded, and tankiest builds in the entire game. Even going up against Void Brawlers, which arguably is harder to get online than Dragon Knights. Dragon Knights is so tanky and includes so much CC and defense inside of it that unless you're ahead of a Dragon Knight player, a lot of times you will lose. So this is one of the best builds to try and force every game if you're looking to climb up the rank charts. The core here is to get Aurelion Sol online into tier 2 as fast as possible, and then surround him with 4 Knights and try to get Phantomon ASAP. You may not be able to get the Guardian buff going, and a lot of times what I would recommend is if you can't find a Pantheon, just go ahead and throw in a Shyvana. Even if Shyvana's rank 1, giving the magic immunity or the high magic resistance to Aurelion Sol is enough to get you through the mid game until you can find that Pantheon later. For items, the Shojins and Rageblade works great for Kayle, especially once she gets to tier 2, because then it's shields galore. You want the Morellonomicon and the Guardian Angel on Sejuani to make sure you're applying the debuff and keeping that team CC alive. On the Aurelion Sol, you'll want a Seraph's Embrace and a Death Cap to make sure that he has a lot of casting potential and good damage output. If you can't find a second Morellonomicon and you don't want to put it onto the Aurelion Sol, I've actually been running Jeweled Gauntlet, which helps one-shot some of the squishy units when the crit does proc, but you can also run some safety units, anything else that adds on top of them from a caster perspective, Luden's Echo, any backup items, or even things like a Trap Claw can keep him safe when enemies are trying to kill him. You can put basic tanky items on Pantheon like Warmogs and a Thornmail. Both these items will make him basically unkillable. To be honest, when he gets to the very end of the game, he is a very difficult unit to deal. The number 3 build is still Brawler Gunslinger. The Brawlers are so valuable because it gives you an incredible amount of HP when you get all 6 online. It's also one of the simplest and easiest builds to run in the game with a few adjustments from the last patch. We're going to be stacking a lot more Giant Slayers now. Even Giant Slayers on Lucian work great because the percent damage you get works excellent against these very tanky teams that you're going up against. In this build, you're going to run all 6 Brawlers with Blitzcrank, Volibear, Rek'Sai, Cho'Gath, Vi, and Warwick. You're going to want to put the Ionic Spark and potentially a Jeweled Gauntlet on Blitzcrank like we mentioned earlier. Cho'Gath, you still want the Morellonomicon and the Guardian Angel, and then you also want to focus on getting the carry items onto your 2 Gunslingers. Personally, for me, I like stacking 2 Giant Slayers on the Jinx with a Trap Claw just because there's so many caster comps now that you want to be able to absorb that shot when it comes towards you. And I love getting Armor Breaker with the Lucian because preventing attacks is almost even better than Hush in a lot of cases and will save you some games when you get stuck. I know 4 Giant Slayers is a little unrealistic, so you can work in extra items like Luden's Echo for Lucian, Hurricane for Jinx. You can even get RFCs, which I've been starting to run a lot more of because it helps keep your units away from the AoE, keeps them further back, and means they reposition less often, which is very valuable with how much CC there is going on around your team. I like protecting in the positioning here, keeping the Gunslingers on the inside with weak brawlers like Rek'Sai and Warwick to the outside in case there's a Blitzcrank or in case there's assassins. You can keep them safe, and then again, you want to spread your units out here if you're not going for a Guardian build because you want to be careful about all the AoE CC that's coming away. Build number 4 is Imperial Knights. This build just keeps getting better. It's really hard to argue with 4 units getting double damage. That's going to be your 4 Imperial units with Darius, Katarina, Swain, and Draven. And even though Draven got a small reduction in his attack damage at base in this patch, he's still one of the best carry units in the game. And this build becomes more popular now because there's more builds in viable. The next build we're going to talk about is Yordle Shapeshifter, which is coming online. As on top of that, you're seeing Void Brawlers and a lot more flexibility, which means that sometimes if no one else is going Imperial Knights becomes wide open for you and it's very easy to pick up and run. On top of the 4 Imperials, you're going to want to get 4 Knights to finish off the build. That's going to be Kayle, Sejuani, Poppy, and Mordekaiser. It doesn't necessarily have to be Mordekaiser Mordekaiser, but the new Mordekaiser's spell damage is pretty high, and it can give you a lot of value from that front. Item-wise, you want to get hyper carry items on Draven. Rageblade and Bloodthirster, I think, are a must, and again, I like running RFC because it means he's going to be further away from the AoEs that are happening in the game. We can also run Infinity Edge. This will give him more burst damage, and will also give him the ability to heal himself for more. I've even seen people run Shojins on Draven, as he doesn't really kick into high gear until he starts juggling axes, which he does need mana and recasting for, and Shojins helps him do that. You'll want the Knight's Vow on the Swain to get the 6 Knight bonus, the Darken on Katarina to get the 2 Demon bonus, and this will give you a ton of extra damage. Morello's and Guardian Angel work great on Sejuani, and then getting the Guardian Angel on Swain is super useful. And of course, last but not least, the KL works great with lots of attack speed, lots of recasting. The Rageblade and Shojins is kind of quintessential. Positioning wise, I like spreading these units out as much as possible. Obviously, if you're up against a specific build, you want to react in kind, but make sure your Draven and your Swain are very safe and protected from Blitzcrank, from Hextech, from assassins jumping in, and make sure that they're in the right spot to get the most done. You also want Sejuani up front so that she takes a lot of damage and then is able to get her ultimate off early in the fight because you want that CC locked. And the final build we're going to talk about today is Yordle Shapeshifter. We saw this come online a little bit when the Mitten item was added into the game, but it's been kind of played with until people figured out that it's a great response to a lot of these very heavy attack-based comps. It's also a comp that is quite different from the other comps. It doesn't include knights. It's not something you're fighting over, and so it does give you a good flexibility option. The key here is to get 5 Yordles with Gnar, Lulu, Veigar, Kennen, and Poppy, and then you put a Mittens item on your Shyvana. The Shyvana is important here because it is one of your shapeshifters. Then you include Swain with Gnar to get the 3 shapeshifter bonus, but this has an added benefit of giving you the dragon bonus with your Aurelion Soul, which, as we know, destroys entire teams with a single spell cast. So this benefits a lot of mid-game units. The Poppy, Lulu, Veigar, and Kennen are all great mid-game units that are easy to get online. In fact, if you can get a GA and Morello's on a Kennen, that'll usually carry you through mid-game without much trouble. You want the same items on Swain if you can, but I prefer to have them on Kennen just for the mid-game option. You'll want to get great items on the Aurelion Soul, but because you have Swain in this build, a Darken on Aurelion Soul works great. It gives you the 2 demon bonus for extra mana and allows Aurelion Soul to get that first cast off a lot easier. Add in a Death Cap and a Seraphs to make sure Aurelion Soul casts more, and then you want to keep your Gnar and your Shyvana alive to make sure that they transform. I like doing this with a Dragon's Tooth on Gnar because really the only danger to Gnar when you have the Shapeshifter bonus active is magic damage. You reduce that with Dragon's Tooth and all of a sudden he is a raid boss. Put a Warmogs onto Shyvana because she is actually pretty tanky once she transforms as well, and then she has the Shapeshifter bonus on top of that, so percent base HP regeneration is always going to work well. And there's actually a really cool growth opportunity for level 8 through 9. If you can get your Veigar to 3-star with this build, it becomes basically unbeatable in a lot of cases. The Veigar will one-shot anything else that's not 3-star in the game. You get a lot of magic damage. The Lulu works great with the Shapeshifters, boosting up their HP even more. You have a lot of stunning coming out with the Kennen and the Gnar ultimates going off, and then Poppy's up in their face as well. You want to get Poppy to 2-star as fast as possible so that she stuns 2 targets instead of 1, but overall this build is great because it's different from the other builds in the list, meaning you don't have to fight for these units as much outside of the Swain and the Aurelion Soul, of course, but it's a great way to counter some very heavy attack-based builds, including Imperial Knights, which we just talked about. Anything that has hyper carries in it that need to hit their targets or casters that need to build up mana, the Yordle bonus is great at slowing that down and stop. So that does it for the top 5 builds in 9.21. I know we're all excited about Set 2 Rise of the Elements coming along, and there's going to be a lot of content coming your way, discovering everything that all those new units have to bear, but it's basically going to be a brand new game with a brand new meta and a lot to learn. So we're going to close off 9.21 with this meta video. Of course, always remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitch. You can notify when I am live, and you can chat with me in a live chat room. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video.